So I wanted to make this video specifically for Udemy and make it a course, but I just can't get myself to charge for this type of stuff. Because I know that there are a lot of people out there who simply can't afford to pay anything. They're starting off their IT career literally from the bottom up, and I just can't charge people for that. So for those reasons, I'm just going to make it free on YouTube, and I hope you all enjoy it.
So in this video, I'm going to go through all the steps. I'm going to show you what it takes to enable and create a shared mapped network drive. You can see that I have the C drive, and then here there is nothing, right? There is no other drive. Well, this is going to change when we create our map network drive. And we're going to set it up so that it automatically installs when a user or person logs into their computer. So right now we only have the C drive. Later on we're going to create it and set it up so that it automatically adds these drives for the people that log into the computer. So the first step is making sure that you have enough drive space on your server. So log into your server, check to see what kind of hard drive space you have. You're going to have to dedicate some space for it, specifically for the shared drive. All right, so I'm going to keep it step by step, and you can follow along on your computer too. If you need a lab, which is what I'm using right now, this is a lab specifically from Microsoft. I have a video on how to set this up specifically, so if you want to follow along, just let me know in the comments and I will gladly send you the link to that video. It will show you step by step how to install this, so that way you can follow along if you need to. But again, you can follow along with majority of these things when it comes to just having your own Windows operating system computer. So if you have Windows computer, you can follow along. First thing first, we need to make sure that on our server, right now I'm logged into the server that I'm going to use for file and sharing services. So right click the start menu, select disk management, and this will basically allow us to make sure that we have enough space to create this volume. We're going to create a specific volume, or a drive if you will, if we only have a single drive. What this means is that we just want to have a dedicated place where we're going to store these shared folders, shared mapped network drives. Okay, in this case we only have a C drive with looks to be 304 or almost 305 gigabytes of capacity, you can see here. But normally you would have multiple drives here, right? Because it's a server. But that's okay, we're going to use this drive to begin with, and we're going to create some unallocated space. As you can see here, there is some already unallocated space, and we can use this to create another letter drive. So instead of C, we can make it whatever we want. But if we want to use some of the space that's already available to us on the C, and normally you wouldn't do this on a C drive, but in this case this is a lab, right? And we don't have any other drives that are in here. But just for the sake of learning, we're going to use a C drive, but normally you would use another physically installed drive on the server. If you had another disk here, it would be a disk 1, 2, and 3, and etc. But this is what we have, this is what we're going to use. If I want to free up some of the space, you see here that it says 293 gigabytes free of 305. If I wanted to use some of this space as a drive, then I can certainly do that. So right click your drive, so Windows C in this case, select shrink volume, and then in the next menu we're going to tell it how much to shrink it by, and it says enter the amount of space to shrink. We're only going to shrink it down by 100, roughly 100,000 megabytes, which is roughly 100 gigabytes, not exactly, but let's just do that to make it simple. So we're going to basically shrink it down by this much, which is going to be roughly 100 gigabyte drive, and this is basically roughly what we need, right? So let's select shrink after we specified how much we wanted. Now we're going to have that extra unallocated space. If you paid attention earlier, you've noticed that this unallocated space was only around 200, and now it's around 300 something, right? So that's okay. From this unallocated space that we've freed up, you can see that we have capacity now of 207 gigabytes on the C drive because we've taken away some of that free space, right? And this is what we're going to use it for in our drive. So right click the unallocated space, select new simple volume, go to the menu, select next, And I'm going to only specify, like I said, I only want to use 100 gigabytes, roughly. And a letter that I'm going to assign to it will be, let's say, I. Let's use the I. Well, let's make it H, actually. Let's make it H and select next. Select next, but make sure you label the volume. In this case, I'm going to label it as finance shared drive, just so we stay organized. You can leave the file system to NTFS and everything is default here except for the volume label. Select next, select finish. This is just to confirm what you've done. And now we have another drive here. Okay, let's go to our drives. Select this PC and we can see that our finance share drive is here and it's under H. And you can see down here that we still have 206 gigabytes of unallocated space that we can play with. And here's the one that we've just created. Okay, so the whole point of this is just to create another drive that we can use as a file storage for our finance group department. Okay, the first step is done. I can just close this. I'm done with this. Now let's open up our server manager right now. If you had it previously open, make sure you close it and reopen it so we can refresh the new volume, the new drive to show up. And here is our file and storage services running down here. Select on that, select under volumes here, select disks. And now on the bottom, we can see that our H drive has appeared. So with our shared drive available now we can start to create a shared managed drive. So with H there selected, right click it with your mouse, right click it, select new share, and this will initiate a wizard, new share wizard. The point of this is so that way you can manage your share in many different aspects. And it tells you here's the very first one that it says this is basic profile represents the fastest way to create an SMB file share. And it tells you here what it is. It's typically used to share files within Windows-based computers. And it says suitable for general file sharing. And then you have advanced options that can be configured later using the properties dialog. And this is very important. Otherwise, I can just go to any drive that is available on the server. I can go to any drive that's available on the server and just add people to it and then tell them to link to it. For example, here's our drive that just appeared, right? Here's our shared drive. So, if I just wanted to share it with, without basic any management, without any advanced features, I can just right click and go to properties, go to sharing and just create a shared path and then just add people to it. That's certainly an option, but you won't be able to measure you won't be able to manage the advanced features that the file sharing and storage service provides for you. And if you wanted to look at the ones that are NFS ones, the only difference is that these are typically used to share files with Unix-based computers, right? So what we just want the regular one, which is the SMB share. And of course, we can select the advanced because if we want to set up advanced features, but let's keep it simple. So SMB share quick. So right now we're configuring this. And right now you can select, volume again here where it says share location. We already selected H, which is fine. We're going to use H. And then here it tells you here that it's online. Here it tells you, the server name, and then it tells you it's online. And then it says it's not clustered. What does that mean? But that means that it's not clustered, meaning that there is no other version of it on the network somewhere. Typically, when you cluster servers, that means that you have another server of the same type that is basically a copy of it that is used for redundancy, meaning that for backup. In case one server goes down, then you'd have another server that you can just turn back on, that you turn on or fail over to use it. If the one server goes down, then you'll have another server that has the same copy of it. And if it's set up in clustering like that, that means that other server will constantly basically make a copy of itself. Okay, I'll leave it at that. This is fine. We have H selected for our volume. Select next. Share name. And we can create this just to be a entire share for the whole finance department. but I actually want to use this shared drive for multiple departments, because finance department doesn't necessarily need the whole drive, right? The whole virtual drive. Later on, we're going to specify a folder specifically to be used by finance department. For those reasons, we're going to name this share name as in shared network folders, because we're going to have multiple folders in there in case we want to add other departments to it. Make sure that your folder architecture is set up correctly. Notice in this video, when I name a shared folder certain way, there's actually wrong way of going about this. You shouldn't have any spaces because it's going to mess up our script that we create later on, the post logon script. For the description, same thing. And here is a local path to the shared. That means that where is this located specifically on our computer, right? On our computer locally. We can see that it's H. So if I go back to our new created drive, it's going to be inside of this. It's going to create a folder called shares, and then it will be another folder within it called shared network folders. Right now it's blank, but we'll go back to it so that way you can see that it actually pops in there. Now, if I wanted to add this folder or this network drive directly to some other computer, here's the path to it. This is the path to it. This is what I would use to connect to it. So this is the part that we are done with. So select next. Okay, next. Select next. And here we can add custom permissions. These are all, and this is what you want to make sure that it's set up correctly. You want to make sure that administrators have full access to it. This is not the point where you would start adding users and people just to use regular computers into. This is what you just want to kind of leave a default for now to keep things simple. But this is basically just for administrators to have full access to it in case they need to make changes. All right, next. And this is just the kind of overview of what we're doing. And we're going to select create to finalize our setup. All right, now it's completed. Now remember what I told you, that those folders will appear inside of the H drive, and here they are. Here is shares, and here is shared network folders. Since I've changed my mind and not actually want to use this entire drive for the finance department, I'm going to rename this to just shared folder when it comes to the volume to stay organized. And it's okay to change your mind, right? It's okay to change your mind. And as long as nothing is being implemented yet, you're just kind of setting things up, then it shouldn't be a problem to change these things. It shouldn't break anything, but if it does, then, then you may have a problem, right? Then we can fix it. Now it's just named shared drive. Okay, now let's go inside of it. Shares, shared network folder, and inside let's create a folder called finance. Okay, this is going to be our finance folder, but you can imagine that in here we can add other folders. For example, HR, human resources. We can add another folder called, let's say, marketing, and etc. Right? We can have in one folder here that's just called IT, whatever else that you want. In this case, we're going to stick with finance, but this just gives you an idea that all of these shared network paths are going to be within the same drive. Okay, I hope this is easy to follow so far. Also, make sure that you set up a backup. So for that, we need to create shadow copies. Okay, next obvious step is to create automated backup. And for that, we're going to use built-in Microsoft Windows Server setup. It's called shadow copy. So our share drive is right here, H. Right click it with your mouse, select configure shadow copies. To create our backups, just in case somebody deletes something or the whole thing disappears, we can have a copy created. And it says here select the volume. So what do you want to make shadow copies of? And we have H, right? So we're going to select that. and select settings. If you just select enable, it tells you here it's just going to use the default settings, which is not necessarily what we want. This is going to vary on your business because you don't want to start making copies of entire drives while in the middle of the day, right? You don't want that to happen, or at the beginning of the day. So for those reasons, select settings, and we're going to specify what we want to use. And then it tells you where do you want your storage area to be. And we don't have another drive here that's selected. And that's okay. We have that other unallocated space that we can use as a backup. So go back to our disk management. Let's create another drive. Again, unallocated space that we have. So we have free space, new simple volume, and specify the same size. This is what I'm going to do here. So 100,000. Okay, so it's 1 for 1. Letter, sure. Let's actually use it letter B for backup, so it's easy to remember. New volume, backup, call it backup, finish. Okay. Now we can select our B. Let me just refresh this here actually, go back to settings. And now we can select the B drive for backup. I'm going to set it to no limit because it's the exact same size, so I wanted to use the full available space that is there. Select schedule, and by default it's set at 7 a.m. every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week if you have it select to weekly. And that's fine if this is when you want to make these changes. However, you can change this too, and I highly recommend that you do, to something that's outside of work hours. So for example, 2 a.m. here, I'm going to select OK because I'm happy with that. Select OK, and now it's going to create backups, scheduled backups every week as indicated. Okay, select OK. Now we have automated backups. It's also very important that you set up a group within Active Directory that will control the access to this shared. All right, so the next step is to add access to this drive. Now that we've created a backup, now we need to give access to the people that need it, in this case, finance people. Here is our properties of our drive. If you go to Security tab, you can see who all has access to it. And if you select Edit, you can add and remove. Here I'm going to remove everyone because I don't want everyone to have access to it, although these controls are not even set for them. I will, however, leave administrator, which is GW1 administrator. GW1 / administrators are the local administrators for the server. The name of the server is GW1. So the computer name for this server is GW1. And the same thing for GW1 users. These are not domain users. I will leave that as it is, which is fine. Select add. And I'm going to make sure that this here is available where it says corp.conteso.com. This is the name of our domain. I want to pull domain users, and I'm going to assign an administrator to this, and it's going to be called lab admin. But if you want to assign administrator, you can add him in there. And here's a lab admin. This is a domain-based administrator that I'm going to give full control of this. Apply, and you can see that it's you can see that this lab admin login is part of the domain because it says corp instead of GW1's corp. I'm going to leave it at this here, and we're going to switch to our domain controller. Let's go to Active Directory users and computers. Okay, and our corp, you can see that it says corp.conteso. This is our domain. Select corp OU, and we don't have a finance group in here, so I'm going to create an OU that's called finance. Okay, organizational unit, finance. Okay, finance is empty right now. In here, right click inside, new group, domain. I'm going to leave it at domain and security group. Group name, finance department H drive access. You can name it whatever you want. This is just for the organizational sake. Okay, and for this specifically, I'm just going to add access. I'm going to allow access to this entire group to that shared location that we've created. If you don't set up the permissions in this way, then you're going to have a hard time trying to grant access to anybody. If you make it available in AD, anybody with access to AD should be able to change access, remove or grant access as needed. Okay, and now we need to give access to it. And I have to make slight adjustment. I know I gave access to the lab admin to the shared drive itself directly. So this is for the entire shared drive. We have lab admin, so you can administer that. But for this specifically, we are going to grant access to that folder only for HR finance, I should say. So go to folder specifically, finance. If we want finance people to only have access to this, go to security, add, type in finance or whatever the full name is if you want, but it will find it. Finance department drive, department H drive access. Select OK. I'm going to make it so that it's not just read and execute, but also modify, so they can create their own folder in there. Select OK. Select OK. So just to reiterate, I've given access to the lab admin to this entire shared drive, which has ability to make changes to all of these individual folders, which are going to be for the finance department, and only access to the finance folder for that group that we've created, only to this. Okay, so the point of it is, you can see now that if I go all the way back, that finance is not going to appear here on the top level of this, because they don't need access to the whole thing, only lab admin here, the administrator. But if I go back here, finance folder specifically, that group has access to it, as you can see here. Okay, so now that's done. But now anybody, maybe even somebody who does help desk who has like tier 2 or tier 3 access, they can go to AD. They can go to Active Directory and just search for a person, right? They can just search for a person. They can go to users, obviously, and find the person in there. But if they say, if somebody is requesting access to the finance department, it has to go through their manager to get approved, right? But let's say Maria is now part of finance department. We can search for Maria in here, double click her, go to member of, and if we make her a member of that finance department, then she'll be able to have access to that. So that finance group that we've created, there it is. Select apply. Now Maria has the same access as this entire group. So you don't have to go to the file server that we've just been in previously and do all of this on the folder level. You just do everything through Active Directory. Okay? Now Maria has access to this. Okay? Maria has access to this, and we can add more people to it, right? And you can do it the same way if I, for example, just look for that group. If I just search for the group, right? Here's finance department group. And if I go to it, and don't be confused about this, it's just a different way of doing this. We've just added Maria as a member of this group, as this security group. And if we select members right here, there she is. So if I want to add more people in here, I can certainly do. So for example, let's type in Norton. Or specify somebody's full name. Edward. There's Edward Norton. Okay, we can add him in there as well. So now Edward also has access to this, assuming that they're both part of finance department, that it's approved by their manager. All right. So how does this look like for the person that just got access to this? Well, let's first of all make sure that we have a path to this, that we have a sharing path. And if you go to properties and sharing, you can see what the path is, network path to this drive. So if I go to a client computer, just a regular computer that's part of the main, and I sign in as Maria, which might give me an error now. Yeah, it is. The sign in remotely. This here, it says that she doesn't have remote desktop access. which is fine because the way these virtual machines work, they're basically remote desktop sessions. I'm not literally in front of the computer because it's all virtual. But all we have to do is open up the main controller, find Maria in here. No, I'm sorry, find the name of the computer that Maria is trying to access. In this case, the name of the computer is Client 1. As you can see here, Client 1. And I can search for that computer, find, change this to Find Computers, Client 1, find, and I can manage this computer remotely. So if I right click this name of this computer and select Manage, I can grant her access to that computer as a remote desktop user. Now it's connecting right now, and it's going to error out. It's going to say, oh, it doesn't work, but it's actually working. It's just the way this lab is set up. But normally you wouldn't have any errors like we're going to see right now. But either way, it's going to be fine. You'll see. And you can do this on the local computer too, but you have to log into that Client 1 as an administrator. But since we're already logged in as administrator to our Actor directory, we can just do this. And here's the pop-up that came up in the background. Although it said it was an error, but it actually worked. You can see right now that we're doing a computer management of Client 1, which is that computer that's on our domain. We're basically making changes to it locally. And the reason we want to make changes to it locally is because locally we gotta tell the computer that this person is allowed to use remote desktop session, which is the error that we've gotten. So local users and groups, remote desktop users, and we can see that I already have some in there from previous videos if you want to check those out as well. I'm going to add Maria there. This is just so we're fixing that error. This is not required for it to work when it comes to the shared drive. I'm just adding her just so we can log in. Okay. Now here we are, Maria C. And there it goes. Now we've told that computer that Maria is allowed to log into this computer using RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. Okay. So it's separate from what we were doing, but that's okay. It's a good learning opportunity. And we now have access. We're going to log in as Maria in here so that we can access that shared drive. Okay, while this is loading, let's again get the copy of this location, and we're just going to plop it in there, and just so to show you that she has access to it immediately after she logs in. And here it is, it's almost there. So if I go to File Explorer and just paste that in there, if I just paste that in there and I hit enter, you can see that I've pasted. You can see that I already found it actually. And if I hit enter, now I have access to that finance folder. You can see it right here. Here's the path, and I'm inside of that folder. So if I go in and I select new, and let's say text document, and just say Maria C created this, okay, and go back to our server. Let's go back to our server and go inside of finance. We can see that it popped in immediately. But it's not mapped. This drive is not mapped to her. I mean, as long as she has a path to it, she can always get to it because she has access. But it's not added. There is no H drive in here, right? There is no H drive in here. And you can add it manually in here by selecting the three dots. And in Windows 10, it's right up here to add a network drive. And you can add it as a network location or as a network drive. So if I just do this, map a network drive, and if you're doing this manually, make sure you specify the same letter that everybody's using. So H, and then paste that location in there, right? And leave it here where it says reconnect at sign in. Now, if they're using specific credentials, make sure that you specify this here, but this, don't worry about that right now. This is not how this is set up. And if I select finish, it will pop in, and then you'll have an H drive right there. But we don't want that. We don't want to have to do this manually every time. What we want to do is create a PowerShell script that will do this for us automatically. Okay? Now, I will do this and it's going to be great. Every user that is logging into these, it's going to automatically create this, and this is going to be in the next video. All right. So I apologize. I wanted to make it right away, but I will create it in the next video. So be sure to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and then I will show you how to create a PowerShell script, configure it so that it automatically do all this for every user that's part of that group. I hope this video is very educational and easy to follow. Thank you so much for all your support. Please also share it with friends that might need this type of education, free education. All right. This is real world examples, real world experience. Thank you very much. And I will release the second part within a week from this video. I hope you like this video. I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.